My name is Curt Behle. I work for Zions Bancorporation out of Salt Lake City, Utah. And I'm an ITSM leader there, manage the platform services group, applications in the support environment, and support teams in both Salt Lake City and Houston, Texas.
So let's just dive right in.
Okay.
Commercial banking isn't really known for its cutting edge innovation and being able to move quickly on its feet, right?
Yep.
So how does you secure buy-in for gamification for training your employees? Like, what was the process in getting into that?
Yeah, it's challenging. Every organization is going to have different spending cultures, and there's going to be benefits with both, whether you're with a high technology company, which I've been with, and then the banking industry. I've also been with a media organization, and they all look at training a little bit differently. The larger organizations are going to look at being a large organization, having internal training and less of outside and less customized. And getting buy-in in that situation is challenging because you need to come up with your own flavor of what the organization is best fit for and what the team is, the team culture. So the challenges are definitely there, but I've seen advantages on both sides, whether you're with a larger, higher spend company as opposed to a company that doesn't have the funds necessarily to do that.
So how much percentage maybe of your budget is spent on training? How would you suggest that other contact centers go about securing that buy-in? Can you talk a little bit about that and the importance of making sure that employees are engaged through certain technologies?
Yeah, I think in making sure that you get the proper funds and securing funds, you need to be passionate about what training you're providing, and it's very important that the team is also asked what kind of training that they like. We all have had the experiences where we're sitting in a room for 8 hours and it's boring, and even webcast, via web training sessions, it can be very challenging. I usually I've dealt with the domestic teams and international teams, so you need to include them whenever you possibly can. So securing that, it needs to be a training environment or a training session that goes across all different locations. And you can do on site, you can do web, but making sure that everybody's delivered the same content. So really, I think engaging the people that are going to be trained and making sure that the value of the dollar that you're spending is going to be spent properly, and that they buy off into what kind of training you guys are having.
Can you give a specific example of how you've applied gamification within the contact center?
Yeah, I think gamification, it's really a strategy when you look at sports or business, and it's important that you play them very similar, and you have different team members and you have different strengths with those team members. It's like a basketball team, you have a starting five. And the starting five is not always the same starting five every year, or maybe every month, or every quarter in business or calendar year. So you really need to look at who your players are and how they apply to your team and how they're best fit in the proper positions.
What would you say the relationship is between technology and agents, and how can it be improved?
Yeah, technologies and agents, it's, we require as a call center agent or a support environment, we require the technology to be able to push us forward. And I've had some previous experiences. Previous CIO, who's now CIO of SpaceX, was always driven by IT being like air, which means it needs to just happen. The technology needs to just happen, and the mechanics need to work. So the agents and everyone else can make their job happen seamlessly for the customer. And the customer is also ultimately the recipient of that. So, but there's always a challenge between the technologists and the engineers who are putting together the mechanics of the telephony system, the reporting, and then the agents who are actually talking to your customers. And it's quite odd that the engineers are the ones who put everything together, but the agents are the ones who actually have the face-to-face with our customer. So it's always a challenging relationship between the technologists, the technology, and the agents. And I think bridging that gap and making sure that both teams are involved, the technology and the technologists are involved with what the customer is and how they operate, and also from an agent perspective on how the mechanics work and technology side.
Do you foresee a need for a more symbiotic relationship there, where the engineers understand more about what the agents do on a day-to-day basis in order to inform what they should invest in the future?
Yeah, and I think the agents always want to know more about why things work like they do, and why the mechanics work like they do. And the engineers would also like to explain the technology a little bit better on why we need to do certain things. There's budget constraints. There's challenges in that space, and getting them together and getting the agents involved in the planning process. If you're going to implement a new telephony system, a new ACD system, if you're going to open up a new call center, to involve that team at whatever level possible to get their buy-in on that initiative.
Where do you foresee technology going for call centers in the future? Like, what would you like to see ideally?
Yeah, I think call centers and support centers in the future are going to continue to change and evolve. And we've got international, we have local, we have dynamics changing constantly. There's always going to be new applications and new ways of doing things, but I think the future is going to bring more streamlining, more automation to provide to the customer. We're always looking for cost cutting, and if the product works and the product does what it's supposed to, and whatever that may be, is the call center volume is going to be less, and that's what we're always trying to achieve. And average handling time being shorter. There's all these statistical pieces that we're looking at making happen. But technology is going to drive a huge portion of that, but also the culture of the organization and how they drive support will as well.
Can you tell me a little bit about your Follow the Sun model? What is that, and how do you measure it?
Yeah, Follow the Sun model for most organizations who have team members overseas. It's really when the sun's shining on you, you're up and alive and working.
Presumably, yeah.
And yeah, maybe. But it is challenging. When you have a Follow the Sun model, you have multiple teams that are what I call handing off the baton to each other and the customer to provide support to the organization. And these different locations around the world in Follow the Sun model have different cultures. They have different beliefs on how they should be measured. They have different ways of thinking what the customer wants. And there's a lot of challenges whether the Follow the Sun team is supporting one country, they're supporting global customers. There's a lot of different dynamics that go into it. So it's challenging. And if it's a US-based company, then we are going to measure based off of US standards.
Makes sense. So a lot of companies want to be customer-centric and have a winning culture and all of these things. So these are all theories that in application are hard to achieve. What would you say companies need to start at to achieve these things, these core values that they're looking for?
Yeah, for customer-centric organizations, everybody does want to focus on the customer. They know what provides them the financial income for their organization and the profits, and it's a lot of companies are driven by Wall Street today. So it's a lot of stock-backed decisions that are being made when you look at organizations. And when we at the customer side, we really don't see or have a lot of say in how those decisions are made at that level. And we can just focus on what the customer wants rather than looking at the financial component of the organization. So I think staying with what defines customer value and what it is for you and your organization is going to be an important decision on how you function as an organization, how much time you spend on the phone with customers, what kind of value you provide to them. It's all needs to be customized for you, your product, your customer, and your financial needs and your financial resources that you have.
Speaking of financial resources, I want to go back a little bit. There are a lot of agencies that are on the smaller, medium to size, and what if they don't have a budget where they can buy these huge suites that will help them, technology suites that will help them achieve what they want to do, and they're maybe building these built to fit on top of legacy systems? What advice would you give them?
Yeah, so, and you're asking for the software side or the training and?
Probably the software side. Well, both, if you
Okay.
can.
Okay. Yeah, if you're looking at training for organizations, it goes back to budget and what we have to work with. And my most successful experience has been when training has been with a limited budget, and that you can go out and get strength finders for $10 a book, and do the assessment with your team, and make it good for yourself and make it what you want to be. If you send somebody off for a training class for $3,000 and they come back and they hate it and it was horrible, you may be able to feed the whole village with that in another organization with a limited budget. So I think making the best for what you need, especially in the call center environment, a lot of it is not based around heavy technical engineering type learning and components. It's really about working with the customer, a lot of soft skills, a lot of things that you can't necessarily attain from a heavy technical class. And the heavy technical classes usually are very expensive, and the other assessment type courses are not. If you can involve the team, it's wonderful. And if you go through the assessment, and I do, and the rest of the team does, that makes it that much more collaborative, and hopefully it's something that will catch in the organization and continue to grow and fester healthily within the team.
Perfect. Is there anything else you'd like to add that we didn't cover?
No, I think that's good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.